Yeah.
Why am I not at least VIP? What?
What do you mean?
You literally have my VIP.
Wait,
Why
am
I
I
not
VIP?
VIP in the chat?
I'm not
course
VIP
you are,
in your
bro.
chat.
Dude, what do you mean you're not?
Dude,
You are
your
VIP in
girlfriend
the chat.
tried to ban me the other day. she was threatening to
What?
ban me the other day.
Dude, that was unfortunate. Alright, let's begin.
Okay, so hello. Welcome
Hello.
everybody to the second official OnlyShams podcast. I am Barokoshama here with my good friend Petco. Petco? Sorry, you've changed your name like 3 times.
Once, actually. Only once. I've
Yeah.
always been Petco.
Always been Petco?
Yeah.
Petco. But anyway,
Um,
Petco is a advocate for the elemental shaman, but he usually says that shaman is dog in context where he was not playing shaman, like when he rerolled to hunter last expansion and played in the MDI. So,
correct.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, Petco. What's going on with you? What's going on?
Well, not much to know, but I've been playing Shaman for quite a long time. Competitive Shaman started to play in Season 1 at the very end of BFA, which now is about 2 years, a little bit more than 2 years now.
And you used
So
to play
it's half-
Warlock before that, right?
I used to play many classes, but Loc was one of them, yes. But I've been playing Hunter for since TBC, so I've been playing Hunter for 8 years. But yeah, that's not a topic. I usually play whatever I have to play when it comes down to competition like MDI, World First Racing. Depends what my team needs, obviously. But for the sake of my own enjoyment, I've always enjoyed the blue class the most. And that's why I've been playing it so much lately as well. I literally played one of the highest hours when it comes down to beta, alpha in Shadowlands. I spent tons of time playing Shaman. And we looked really, really good. I remember it. But then they hit us with double nerf in a row. And we became literally...
We were good because of
tank.
3 bugs.
True.
3 or
but
4
still,
bugs.
but so was the Windwalker, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and they got buffed, right? So anyway.
But that's a history of Blizzard because they'll see that
Yeah.
Ellie Shaman is
Yeah.
really good, and then they'll nerf us, but then they'll fix the bugs, but then not compensate for
Right.
the damage loss.
Correct.
Which has happened so many times. So
I mean,
yeah.
that's what they did though. Like they nerfed us, and then they compensated us 2 minutes and a half later.
I mean, yeah, but this compensation is kind of it's really good. It's kind of like we've been
Yeah.
ramping for 5 years, and now we're finally getting
Yeah.
our time.
We always ramp.
We
We're
always
always
ramp.
ramping.
We're ramping to the next.
We
We're
never
ramping
ever
for
wanna-
9.1.
We always
now.
ramp.
That's
True.
awesome. Thanks for the little backstory there. If you guys
Yep.
don't know me and you're tuning into the stream for the first time, or you're watching this live at twitch.tv/Barokoshama, or you're watching it at the YouTube, YouTube/Barokoshama, or whatever that / is. My name is Barokoshama. I've been a Shaman advocate and maining Shaman since Mystic Pandaria Throne of Thunder. I've been releasing content out on YouTube and streaming on Twitch since early Legion. You guys may have heard of me through World First Race. I've been casting those events as well. But this is an exciting time for Shaman all around the world because 9.05, I want to say, is probably the best patch for Shaman since Siege of Orgrimmar in Mystic Pandaria. All around Shaman. Resto, Enhancement, and Elemental. This is a really, really good time to be a Shaman. We're going to plug Petco real quick. You guys can obviously see our Twitch handles and our Twitter handles down below in our webcam borders here. But if you want to go and check out Petco's YouTube channel, I'll be leaving a link to that in the video's description down below. So, topics for discussion today, Petco. We know that you are a Necrolord advocate, and myself, I recently swapped over to Night Fae. This is going to be one of the discussions. We're going to be talking about Necrolord versus Night Fae. Also some soulbind talking. Why? Why do you play which which covenant? What are the pros and cons of each? Okay. Then we'll move into what builds in to use in which weeks, like the affixes, mentioned stat priorities and stuff like that, etc. Echoes of the Great Sundering versus Skybreakers. When is it better to use which? How do you use which? Right? When do you use which? Where do you use which? What dungeons? Right? This also plays into the builds and the affixes.
The good thing is that we play completely different builds, completely different covenants, right?
Yeah.
You play Night Fae, I play Necro, I play Ecos, you play Skybreaker, you EU, you're NA, I'm EU, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's gonna be so good. We have different point of views.
But I still dabble in all of the builds. Like I like to keep myself up to date with. Like last week, I only played Echoes the Great Sundering Storm Elemental.
Last week, no, not last week. The week before last week, I played Skybreakers for like 5 days in a row.
Yeah. Yeah. So and we'll talk about that. Why it's good to kind of dabble in each of the builds, but more topics that we're going to be talking about, right? The struggles on high keys as elemental shamans. How is elemental shaman standing in the current meta? Are we meta? Why are we not meta if we're not? Stuff like that. And current class bugs. That's going to be like a little small section that we wanted to mention. Like Shake the Foundations is still bugged. It's a conduit that we would like to use as elemental shaman, but we currently can't because of its bug. So why don't we start off?
We can, but
I mean, nobody in their right mind with the knowledge of why it's bugged is going to use it.
True.
So why don't we start off Necrolord versus Night Fae?
All right.
You can take the stage here. I've done enough talking. Let's talk about Necrolord. You go.
Sounds good. All right. So first thing first, before I start talking about Necrolord, I want to point out something that it doesn't really matter what covenant you play if you don't do any competitive content. What I mean by competitive content is, I mean, if you're looking into double into for high keys or like competitive PvP or competitive raiding, it doesn't matter what you play. Like you can play Banter or Kyrian or Necro, Night Fae. All four are going to be fine. Yeah. Obviously, the base two covenants right now are either Necro or Night Fae. And I've always said that if you do like up to like 20 keys, I would say even like 21-ish, pushing the boundaries, it can play either of them.
Yeah. I mean, you can play any covenant.
Oh, absolutely, you can. Obviously, the higher the key goes, the more covenant matters. The more covenant buffs have an influence towards the dungeon. So one of the things why I like Necro is, first of all, the only covenant that provides you with Maelstrom generation. Now, unlike the rest three, they don't give you any Maelstrom when you use your special covenant ability. Right? So Necro is the only covenant that does that for you.
And we've talked about that before a lot in other guides that you've produced or I've produced, right? It's a common reoccurrence as to why Necrolord is strong. It is a good strength of it.
Second, Necrolord provides an insane 2-3 target cleave. It does give you a better 2 to 3 target DPS compared to any other covenant, and that's a major struggle since BFA. That's where we lack the most damage, like when you fight 2 or 3 mobs, and that's in the dungeons, for example, like Theater of Pain, where the density of the pool is rather small. For example, Plagueful, where you play Plague Border strategies, which means you don't really do as many big pulls. So that's where Necro can shine. It also gives you a survivability, which is very, very important aspect when it comes to Elemental Shaman, and especially Mythic Plus, because sometimes you do lack the survivability tools to survive a specific fight or scenario. And the Fleshcraft is an amazing defense. It's so better than your wall. Not only gives you a shield, but it also gives you a DR, 20% DR.
I think right now it's one of the strongest defensive cooldowns in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's stronger than the Astro Shift.
That's not an immunity. Like cutting out all immunities, if we're talking about pure like just defensive cooldowns, Fleshcraft is one of the strongest. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it has 2-minute cooldown. And also the final reason you're Necrolord, which is one of the least popular covenants when it comes down to Mythic Plus. So there's an even extra chance for you to be picked up in pub groups. So that's why I like Necrolord so good so far. And
you mentioned the two like dungeons that Necrolord is the strongest in. Not just because of the buffs that they provide, right? So in Plaguefall, you get the ooze buffs when you Fleshcraft near them. You get haste buff from the red blob. You get a damage reduction, 10% damage reduction from the purple, and you get a ticking damage, like extra little DPS globs that pop out from your team members. Right? It's almost nothing, but it's okay. right? But and then you also mentioned Theater of Pain, right? Those two
Correct.
dungeons themselves, because of the way that you pull the dungeons, because of how many mobs you're limited to in those pulls, Necrolord pulls out ahead in those two to three target cleaves, like you said, which is one of Elemental Shaman's historically worse combat scenarios. Not only that, but those are the two dungeons that offer the Necrolord buffs, right? The banners in Necrotic Wake, or not Necrotic Wake, excuse me, but in Theater of Pain offers, what is it, 10 or 50, 10% versatility for the entire party.
10% verse for 6 minutes.
Yeah, they upped it. They recently buffed it. It was 5 minutes before, now it's 6.
Correct. Yeah, and there's the three bonus in total, so it's like 18 minutes uptime of verse, and also movement speed. You get 10% movement speed and verse for 6 minutes.
Yeah. So in the dungeons where it matters most, Necrolord heavily shines, right? And we talked about versatility of Necrolords, not only in what it can do for your character, right? The defensive, the extra Maelstrom generation, the 2 to 3 target cleave damage increase. Let's talk about the soulbinds. What are the strengths of the soulbinds for Necrolord?
So there are only 2 viable soulbinds when it comes down to Necrolord, and that's Bonesmith Hammer and Emanate. Now, majority of the keys you're gonna be playing, majority of the keys you'll be playing Bonesmith. That's because it's generally the best soulbind, because it gives you a passive 3% intellect, and it also gives you the ability to have an extra defensive, and also Marrow Gemstone, which is like insane a trait to have, which is pretty much 18% crit for 10 seconds, and that has a 60 seconds cooldown, which means you can potentially synergize this with Stormkeeper. And if you run Batch, which is a PvP on your Trinket, you can have an insane amount of burst within like a minute, every minute, pretty much like Combust Mage. So that's why I like it so much. Also, double defensive conduit is pretty good.
Yeah.
And Emanate is not as popular, but it could potentially shine when it comes down to Master of the Elements build with Elemental Blast, slightly more single target prior damage oriented. But that's only for a very niche situations. For example, High Tyrannical Key, I would say, Plague Folk could be useful, or Theater of Pain again, where you kind of need a prior damage. You need a single target. You need a the burst. So that's where I would see a shining. But other than this, I would say 99% of the time you're gonna be playing Bonesmith Hammer.
Yeah.
There's only like a couple of bugs, by the way, because whenever you die, you still get to be alive for like 10 seconds, but you do 50% reduced damage from Bonesmith Hammer.
This can help in some situations, because if you are in that, you're unkillable. Like, you can't die again until the time, or like the buff itself runs out, right? But so you can prolong a Prideful, or you can prolong a boss.
But one more thing to keep in mind, there's like a major bug right now in Necrotic Wake. Whenever you die downstairs, you cannot resurrect anymore. You're forever down. And that could potentially, interfere if you want to time the key. So you gotta be very careful how you approach this.
You're talking about the last boss, the Gauntlet. If you died downstairs.
Yeah, no. I'm talking about the last boss of Necrotic Wake. He sends you downstairs.
Yeah, the Gauntlet.
Have to kill the guy, right? It's just, if you die downstairs as a shaman with a Bonesmith Hammer soulbind, you're gonna be stuck down forever.
Even if you like try and purposely kill yourself in game to get battle resed, and then you click the buff off.
You cannot get battle res. You can get battle res if somebody goes down and rests you, but they cannot pick the angel. You're forever stuck downstairs.
Hey, good thing we have a 30-minute cooldown, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Even if you ank, you cannot just go upstairs ever. It's just bug. And I've been trying to sort this out for so long. I've reported it many times, but nothing happened. It's still there, and yeah, that's one of the main, I would say, disadvantages. But
that is unfortunate. Well, I mean, that's a pretty small disadvantage, right? And I mean, another advantage that you didn't mention with the Necrolord Soulbinds is the sheer amount of versatile components they have, right? They're good in all situations. There's not this Soulbind is good for single target. This Soulbind's good for AoE. Like, that would be the case with Night Fae, right? There is a specific case with Marileth, like Plague Boar or Plaguebinder Marileth. He is specifically the best soulbind for PvP because of his soulbind abilities. Like, he gives you Ooze Frictionless Coating, which is a nice little heal. Final form or ultimate form, when you're channeling Fleshcraft, you're also healing, you're immune to CC. Right? So, like, specifically speaking, that is the best soulbind for PvP if you're a Necrolord. But outside of that, your soulbinds are very versatile.
Yep.
And if the drawback for Necrolord soulbinds is like a couple bugs, right? Another drawback that you didn't mention was they actually recently hotfixed the Bonesmith Arsenal crit buff. You can no longer game it, you can't cancel or macro it, which was extremely useful in the top end player base, right? To game the proc so that it was always up during your burst windows. It was hella annoying. It was so annoying to play around. It was really, really dumb. And you know what? It's good that they fixed it, but it's also like the top end player base was kind of like, well, crap. You know? There's another drawback. You cannot control that crit buff anymore. Usually it'll still proc in a good moment anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I just wanted to mention those couple things since we were still on the whole Necrolord thing. Now let's talk about Night Fae. I'm currently Night Fae. I swapped a few weeks ago after I finished progression and we killed Mythic Sire Denathrius, my guild dinosaur cowboys on Area 52. I swapped to Night Fae because there was a lot of growing hype around Night Fae for Elemental Shaman. Even before 9.05, there was a lot of growing hype. You saw some people swapping over to Night Fae. Some people saying that the soulbinds were super, super powerful, right? And it is true. Khura'in, specifically, gives you First Strike and Wild Hunt Tactics. Wild Hunt Tactics being you do 10% additional damage to an enemy when it's above 75% HP, right? And you also do additional healing when targets are below 35% HP. Really good. Also, when it is active, you gain a movement speed increase. This could be helpful. Not only that, but First Strike. If you attack an enemy before it attacks you, you gain 35%. Is it 35 or 25? 25%.
It's 25 for 5 seconds.
25% critical strike rating. Increased critical strike rating, so it stacks on top of your current crit rating for 5 seconds. It can be refreshed. It does not stack. So, you can essentially game this crit buff if you start out generating Maelstrom or enough Maelstrom to get going on a single target. Okay? And then when you're ready to finally pop off, as long as it's not too late into the fight encounter or the combat scenario, you can gain that crit buff again during your burst window. This also is really beneficial on weeks where mobs or affixes will increase the uptime on First Strike, like Spiteful. Spiteful is really gamey for First Strike. It's extremely lucrative. And it can honestly double the amount of uptime that you have for it, which is a little cheesy, definitely.
I think it's not cheesy, that's a little padding.
That's padding. Dude, those in some cases, those Spiteful need to die, alright? Spires of Ascension, you can't take your portals or your angels until you're out of combat. Mists of Terranisight, you can't walk through the gateway until you're out of combat. Theater of Pain, you can't take portals in the ritualist area until you're out of combat. Spitefuls need to die.
I guess somebody gotta kill him.
Yeah, somebody's gotta kill him. That's me. Easy pad, easy life. Okay, and not only that, but I think that with me playing Night Fae for as long as I have now, I've definitely figured out not only the strengths that come with the soulbinds, but the actual active abilities and how they benefit Elemental Shaman, specifically in high-end Mythic Plus. So, we are missing out on some quite significant damage reduction when we're not Necrolord. Right? If we don't have Fleshcraft, we are a little bit squishier. This is true. But if you're good enough to play around that, using your only defensive cooldowns, Astral Shift, Earth Elemental, Hardened Skin, if you're spec'd into Primal Elementalists, if you're using them smart, if you're using them correct, you're not overlapping them right, you can get away with not having Fleshcraft. We've already been getting away with it for years to begin with, so...
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, it does really depend what kind of content you're doing, right?
Yeah.
If you don't do any top-end content, it doesn't really matter. That's why when people come in my chat and they tell me, "Oh, dude, I'm doing 15 key. Should I go Night Fae? I'm right now Venter." No. If you do this kind of keys, Venter is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You don't need to swap to Covenant just because you think that it's like
Elemental
2%
Shaman
more powerful.
is one of the very few classes that can flex any Covenant without serious repercussions.
Yep, absolutely.
And that is because our base damage is what is so powerful, not because of the Covenants themselves.
True.
Blizzard has done a really good job with Elemental Shaman not relying heavily on the Covenant system, and that's good. That reflects well on them for balancing certain things in the game. Obviously, that's not perfect. They can do a lot more to other classes, but we do not... We're not in that, as someone just said in chat, borrowed power, Pog. We're not really in that power vacuum right now.
I mean, we still have a little bit, but not primarily.
In the legendary system, but so does everybody else.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, you can flex any Covenant that you want. If you're in a Mythic Plus team, and somebody in your group needs to go Kyrian. Yeah, Kyrian's not the best for Elemental Shaman, but it's not going to crazily impact your overall damage. Vesper Totem is a pain in the ass, but at least you'll get the buffs in Necrotic Wake and the Spears and Spires of Ascension if you really need them.
True.
But anyway, digressing back to Night Fae. What I have found is that it works really well with my current playstyle. I'm an aggressive player. I like to do aggressive plays and hopefully get away with them without dying. Night Fae allows me to do that because of the extra mobility with Soul Shape. I get to finish my cast before I teleport to a safety if I need to dodge a mechanic, right? This happens quite often as I'm a very risky player. But also, it gives you really good hybrid feels with Fate Transfusion. Even though Fate Transfusion does not have the pro of generating Maelstrom, not to say it won't in the near future. I'm sure once Blizzard realizes the balancing problem with the Covenants with specific classes and specs, like maybe they'll add additional Maelstrom generation to Chain Harvest and Fate Transfusion. But until then, we're solely using Fate Transfusion on single target situations or Pridefuls. Fate Transfusion is extremely strong for Pridefuls. Very, very strong. It's potent damage, especially if you use it during your first strike window and your Wild Hunt Tactics window. Your ticks from Fate Transfusion right now, they're ticking for 7k crits for me, right? And that can happen so much in your first strike window. I'm getting upwards of 45 to 50k total damage from a single Fate Transfusion cast on Prideful, which is extremely strong to start out with. And then you pocket the heal until late into the Prideful when it has high stacks and doing a lot more damage, and you top your team with a combo of Fate Transfusion and Ancestral Guidance. You can completely top your team from like 20% HP. Everybody gets topped. It only hits 4 targets, but that's why you add the Ancestral Guidance in there.
True. Right, so what do we conclude then? Necro, Night Fae, what is better?
I think overall, in the grand scheme of World of Warcraft, if you are doing all of the content, PvP, Mythic raiding, or raiding in general, and Mythic Plus, you should go Necrolord. It is the overall best Covenant for Elemental Shaman, but...
Yeah, it's the more versatile.
It's the most versatile.
Yep.
There are situations where other Covenants will pull ahead in pure single target, right? Night Fae pulls ahead of Necrolord, right? In long duration AoE, I believe Necrolord pulls ahead of Night Fae, but in short duration burst AoE, Necrolord falls behind Night Fae. So there are situations for each. Here's the thing.
I mean,
you want to choose the Covenant that fits your playstyle. I think that's just the broad answer.
The broad answer, and I can also add something to it.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what Covenant you're playing if you don't do a cutting edge content.
Yeah.
But if you do care about this kind of content, if you are a competitive player, if you are looking to get a slight edge whenever comes down to, let's say, Mythic progression or getting better in Mythic Plus, then you have to choose. In my opinion, if you look to get the best parses right now, Nia is the best soulbind, and Night Fae could be potentially the best covenant if you're gonna get parses for a pure single target. Necrolord is gonna be the most versatile covenant. It's gonna be great for PvP, for Mythic Plus, for raiding, for high end Mythic Plus. I would absolutely recommend to go Necrolord. It gives you survivability. You're also Necrolord, which means you're gonna be picked up in groups.
Yep.
Because that's one of the
buffs.
most rare covenants. Exactly. And generally, it's really fun to play, in my opinion.
It is fun.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, the one thing that I'm missing from not being Necrolord is definitely the additional Maelstrom generation and just seeing waves of lava bursts go out on multiple targets. That's a really fun aesthetic thing that I miss about Necrolord. But I feel like with the current meta of skipping Pridefuls in the top end Mythic Plus, Night Fae is falling off. Night Fae is falling behind because that additional healing that you're so good at on Pridefuls isn't becoming as relevant. Now, this is strictly speaking top end. Top, right? People pushing 24s, 25s, 26s. They're skipping Pridefuls. That's what's happening. They have to in order to time the keys. Because the buff isn't worth the time investment, the cooldown investment, right, that you would have been putting into those Pridefuls.
Correct.
So they use invisibility potions and usually a stampeding roar if the druid's in the group as well to help with the mobility.
Correct.
So Night Fae is falling off a little bit. It's hella fun to play currently, and you shouldn't have to worry about it if you're doing anything below a 22, a 21. Play whatever covenant you want. That's the point.
All right. So that topic is closed. Let's go to the next one. One of the most common questions that I get to ask is, which one is better? Echoes of the Great Sundering or Skybreaker? What stat should I go? Should I have my crit on? Should I have my haste on? Is mastery good? Is mastery bad? And we're going to talk about where, when, how, which dungeons. Starting off myself, it doesn't matter if you play Echoes of the Great Sundering. I'm just going to call it Echoes to be shorter. Or Skybreakers. Your main secondary stat is going to be crit. It's going to be always crit. It's what I want to follow. And after crit, you want to go haste versus mastery. Mastery is the least desirable stat. By the way, stream is fine.
Okay.
Stream is fine. Yeah. Mastery is the least desirable stat. Crit is the most desirable stat. Something to keep in mind is make sure that you understand diminishing returns.
Yes.
as soon as you enter around 30%, which starts the first tier of diminishing return, you're gonna get 10% penalty. So that means
there's a hard value for it,
30.
though.
Exactly.
There's hard values for it. It's not just percentages. It's like hard values for, I think, for all classes right now. I think crit is around 1,200.
I don't know. I think it's a bit lower. I don't think it's 1,200.
Yeah. Okay. It's 1,050. You start the 10% diminishing return.
Yeah.
20% is 1,400. So currently on my character, I'm at 30% crit, but my value of crit is only at 859. So I still have a ways to go. I could probably get up to 34% crit before diminishing returns start to kick in.
Yep.
Which is nice because I'm definitely on my way there.
Sure.
So when you're crafting your legendaries, though, whether it's Skybreakers, Fiery Demise, or Echoes of the Great Sundering, your main priority is to get critical strike on either of those pieces, but you also need to keep in mind the slot, right? So Echoes of the Great Sundering, usually we will recommend getting that on the shoulder slot because the glove slot can be picked up from the gloves of Stone Legion Generals, which is a really good itemized piece. It's got crit and haste on it, right? Those go into the glove section. If you get them on Mythic, it's 233 item level, super strong. And for Skybreaker's Fiery Demise, you can either go chest or ring. Now, it's kind of the obvious choice to go chest here because rings do not have primary stats on them, and the chest you can upgrade up to 235 item level. Chest has one of the slots that have the highest primary stat values on them, and it's a no-brainer to go into here. But I realize that in some cases people have crafted the ring unfortunately.
I don't really recommend that, but
Yeah.
if you have it in ring, I guess not a big deal. But generally, it's slightly more optimal to not have it
Yes.
there. Chest is preferable.
Just because of the item level.
Yes, and also you get a primary stat, which right now in the current expansion, primary stat is always
king.
twice as good as your. Exactly, it's almost twice as good as any secondary stat when it comes down to single target, and always even like goes to triple the value.
Yeah.
So you always want to go primary stat. Always, always, always.
Now, we mentioned earlier that you want to try to avoid mastery as much as you can. And this is 100% evident on slots on your gear. That's like your necklace, your rings, right? Because those don't have primary stats on them. That's not as influential. Correct. But when you're upgrading gear on your character, if something has mastery on it, but it's like a quite noticeable difference in primary stat increase, go for the primary stat, not the mastery. That's what you're gearing for. That means you can use the mastery piece, essentially. It's not going to be that big of a DPS loss because you're gaining an insane increase in the intellect or the primary stat. So, just wanted to get that out there. Now, we talked about legendaries. This plays into builds for Mythic Plus. When to use which build. And if you want to be really good at Elemental Shaman, you should probably be dabbling in all of them.
So, here's my take. I have myself played both builds for a long time.
Yeah.
I've played all kind of affixes at any level. And here's my conclusion. I generally prefer to play, depending on the week and the affixes, and also on the group, with Echoes of the Great Sundering. I'll tell you why, before you start judging. I'll tell you why. So whenever you play in a coordinated groups, e.g. pucks, which is majority of the population in WoW, they don't have a set group, a set players to play with. Ecos is way better. First of all, because you can hardly ever predict what the tank is gonna do, even if he's gonna give you everything before the run, and you pretty much have damage all the time. You don't rely on a heavy cooldown such as Storm Elemental. You only rely on your Stormkeeper, which is a 60 seconds cooldown, which is pretty easy to manage, to be honest, when it comes down to pugging. Also, you have a better single target. As you know, Ecos right now is around 3% less than the best single target legendary for Shaman, which is Windspeaker right now on a pure single target. Third option, you have a private damage. Whenever you fight 10 mobs, right, especially on the weeks, for example, Sanguine, Bowstring, where you need a private damage, the funnel, the Earth Shocks in the high HP mob kind of can stabilize the health throughout the entire group, and they also put the AoE with the Earthquakes. So that's one of the massive reasons why I prefer to play Echoes. Obviously, the playstyle could be a little bit clunky. I usually call it the Lotto spec, because if you proc Aftershocks, you're gonna do like
it's insane
100k.
Yeah.
If you don't proc anything, then you're gonna end up like doing okay damage. Not bad, but not good, right? And also, you're gonna have a better damage on a Pride, which right now is a massive problem.
Yeah.
And if you don't pop your quotas on Pride, I've seen many people don't. For example, you hold your Stormkeeper, you hold your Combust, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Straight up.
100%.
Right.
Okay, and
yeah,
I'll stop you there because you may be surprised by what I'm about to say, but I agree with you.
Yep.
In the last few weeks of playing Tyrannical Keys, playing Sanguine, it is smart to understand the strengths of the legendary, even though the playstyle is unfavorable.
Yep.
And having that understanding, like I've given to myself essentially by practicing it, it's kind of like opened up not my eyes, but like it's made things a lot more clear as to when to pick certain builds in the situations. Sanguine is like you said, it's priority target damage, but not only that, but the strength that Echoes of the Great Sundering has on a Sanguine week is less CC, keeping the mobs in the Sanguine pools if things go south. If you're dropping Earthquakes every 60 Maelstrom, guess what? The mobs are going to be CC'd in Sanguine pools more often than not.
True.
And that's the main reason why I ran Echoes last week during the Sanguine week, is because I didn't want to fuck over the Sanguine pools, right? Even though I have a knock myself, it's best to not put yourself in that situation rather than to try and get yourself out.
And to be fair, your knock is like very powerful. Sometimes you can even ninja pull by mistake if you do
Yeah.
it. Especially if you're fighting like a tight dungeons like Sanguine Death, for example,
Yeah.
or Theater of Pain. Imagine knocking it and it's like pull something. It's really annoying sometimes.
Yeah.
That's why you prefer something like Typhoon. It's slightly better than yours.
Yep.
But if you're like mastering your Thunderstorm, then you can kind of play around it.
Yeah.
But generally, try to always be cautious how you do it, especially with Thunderstorm.
Yeah.
And it's very powerful mob.
I agree with the whole priority target damage if one mob in the pool needs to die or needs to be lowered HP, even though it has a higher value of HP and it needs to be evened out. That is a blatant strength of Echoes of the Great Sundering. Excuse me.
Yeah, and just one more thing I would like to mention is like you do priority damage in case of like, you know, you kind of kill everything evenly, which means you don't kill everything around, then it's like a one mob left, which is like 500k. Example, this can be said about first pool of Spires of Ascension. You pull 7 mobs, you lost. Goliath has usually 50% more HP than any other mob.
Yeah.
And you dump all of your Earthshocks in it. And one Earthshock can crit around 15 to 20k. If you have Prideful, it crits for 25k.
Yeah.
And that's a single Earthshock. And then you put between 4 or 5 per pack, so that's like 120, 30k extra damage. You can even out the HP so good. That's one of the main strengths. You want to do effective damage. You want to play the affix. You don't want to just do pad.
Yeah.
Like if you want to just do pad, then you know obviously
play whatever the heck you want.
Yeah, exactly. Even you won't progress in rankings. Like it's not about padding. It's about effective DPS. Now people are gonna start spamming Pepe Love because I sometimes pad. But the truth is, you have to be a team player, right? You cannot just pad like a monkey left and right.
Yeah. Even though it makes you look really good. It makes you look really good, but if you don't time the key, that's the problem.
Well, that sucks. Wait, I mean, I cannot deny I haven't padded in my life, right? Obviously,
I pad too, of course. Spiteful weeks. Let's go. I'll pop cooldowns. Like, let's go.
When I'm serious, I'm like, you know what? No padding, no memes. That's it. I'm gonna play my game. But generally, play affixes. Don't play just for the overall damage. It's very important. Very important detail you want to keep on, especially if you're pugging, because that's what will lead you to people not inviting if you buy the padding, right?
Yeah.
If you're holding your Stormkeeper on a pride for the whole group dice and you're like, oh dude, why don't you pop combust? Well, guess what? Maybe you should have up your cooldowns, baby, right?
Yeah.
But
I want to mention one last thing about Echoes before we move on. And that is Echoes doesn't feel as bad anymore. It felt bad before 9.05 because it felt like you were putting so much resources into this one earthquake, and tanks were not confident. Groups themselves were not confident enough to rotate CCs to keep things stationary, right? Tanks were moving a lot more before the patch, and it felt like you wasted so much resources into this legendary. So it got a bad stigma. It got a really bad reputation. But in 9.05 and me playing it a lot more, even though the mechanics of the legendary itself has not changed, the environment that you're using it in has. Slightly. It's slightly more favorable to run it now because everybody's a lot more confident. The groups are becoming a lot more coordinated and rotating CCs, making sure that the damage that you're putting out is not getting wasted.
Correct. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, the playstyle is not my favorite. I really dislike to press Earthshock and Earthquake. It felt clunky at the beginning. You're going to get used to it, and it's really... it still does. It could be really annoying, right? But you have to understand, at the end of the day, you play a specific build because it's strong, not because you necessarily like it, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. It's not the best playstyle. Obviously, if I could go back in BFA and play my Blood of the Enemy, I'll go for it.
Hell yeah.
Right now, in the current expansion, the current meta, the current season, that is right now one of the best builds, I would say.
Yeah.
In most of the cases, in some cases, we're going to double now in Skybreaker where ET is better in some cases.
Yeah. So why don't we talk about that quickly? Because we're still on the whole builds topic. When would you use Skybreakers over Echoes of the Great Sundering?
All right. You asking me?
Yes, I'm asking you because you said you've been playing it a lot more.
Yeah. Okay. So from my personal testing, I found out that the longer the mob lives, the more value you're going to get out of Skybreakers, because sometimes it's not just about putting flame shock. Sometimes understanding how many flame shocks do you need, How many do I need to keep in a pack to be able to get it for the next pack? And that will primarily come with experience. You wouldn't be able to judge it like straightforward, but with time you're gonna get kind of used to it. I would say on a keys where you pull back-to-back consistently big packs, your Storm LA will get the most value out of it. And that's keys, for example, like the other side, like Host of Atonement, like Stanwind Deaths, potentially Spires of Ascension. That's kind of situational.
Yeah, if you're going to the right side and you're doing a lot of chain pulls, Spires.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's the thing. Whenever you play back-to-back big packs, and when I say big packs, I mean like 4 or 5 plus mobs back-to-back, it could be useful. Keep in mind that your single target will be lower, but in some dungeons, you don't necessarily have to have a single target. Host of Atonement is an example of this. You have a Gargons for the bosses. You don't care about like a good single target, right? Mist, for example, is a dungeon where, again, I mean, you kind of do care because of the first boss, but generally it's not like a big deal if you don't have an insane single target.
Exactly,
right?
yeah. And I agree with those. And I think it's great that you didn't mention Mists of Tyranid Scythe, because it's known as a big mob pull dungeon, but it has so much RNG in the way that you pull the dungeon through the maze section that it's not as favorable for Skybreakers.
Correct. But if you have watched my streams, I've kind of invented one thing. Yeah, I'm doing some mumbo jumbo stuff with my Earth Elemental.
You're doing a lot of maze pulls, aren't you? You're doing a lot of through the wall maze pulls. I mean, like, I do the one after the first boss for sure every single time.
Yeah, but I do that in a maze in actual packs. For example, we play Prideful with my Earth Elemental. I pull stuff before the second boss. We try to like get around close to 80%. Pretty much, I'm a dirty boy. Okay, I abuse the fuck out of the Earth Elemental in that maze. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. But
I mean, yeah, use it to abuse it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just dirty boy. That's all, right? But nevertheless, it's really good build whenever you play like big pulls, right?
Yeah.
And that, I would say, primarily 45 weeks, where the trash left longer.
Yeah.
The longer the trash left, the more value you're gonna get out of Skybreakers.
Of course. And I don't think it's worth to use Skybreakers on any tyrannical week. It doesn't make sense.
Absolutely agree. I was just about to say that. If you play tyrannical weeks, you want to stay away from some Skybreakers.
Yeah.
But on 45 weeks, especially in those dungeons, it could be really, really good. In some occasions, better than Equus.
Yes. Yep. We have a question. One last thing, because a lot of people ask this. Elemental Blast over Aftershock. When do you use it? In a serious case. In Mythic Plus only. We're not talking about rating.
Okay, in Mythic Plus, the only case where you want to use Elemental Blast is whenever you play kind of more single target oriented build in terms of Master of the Elements. And that's going to be in Theater of Pain or Plaguefall. Plaguefall only if you play with Premade. And Premade means like you play the Plague Borders with packs and bosses and stuff like this. But generally, if you're pugging, if you're doing like 18, 19 KS and like 15 or below, don't bother Elemental Blast ever. Don't bother with it. But if you're playing like 19 and above, you could find a great use of it in Theater of Pain and Plaguefall.
Pretty much what you're saying is anytime that you actually need the priority target damage increase.
Pretty much, yes.
Right. Other than that, there's no reason to run Elemental Blast. Aftershock outperforms Elemental Blast in every other scenario throughout the entirety of the dungeon.
Except single target.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm talking about overall in the dungeon. Aftershock is way more useful than Elemental Blast.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Our next topic is struggles on high keys as Elemental Shaman. We mentioned before survivability has been a historically reoccurring issue for the Elemental Shaman, mainly because we don't have an immunity.
Correct.
But this has been lessened with Shadowlands because of the introduction of the buffed version of Necrolord's Fleshcraft. Obviously, things are a little bit better. But aside from survivability struggles, what do you think is the real struggles?
Okay, so I think Shaman doesn't really have much struggles when it comes down to keys. The two biggest struggles we had in BFA was mobility and survivability. Now, the mobility part is already taken care of in the face of Spirit Walker's Grace, right?
Yep.
That's very, very powerful. So that's already one gone. And now survivability, I would say survivability only shows weakness when you play like the highest of the highest keys, because you don't have immunity.
Yeah.
Which is very, very important aspect when it comes down to Mythic Plus. And in general rating, like a Mythic progress rating, immunity is very, very important when it comes down to class whether or not your class will be meta, right?
Yeah.
That's why I would argue right now we're not meta because we don't have an immunity, which is very, very important in my opinion. And also our primary stat is not versatility, which is like very important if you want to survive the highest with the highest keys,
Yeah.
and to be considered meta. Now I'll give you an example. Mage, for example, they're stacking haste verse, right? They're rocking between like 20% verse or so, which is incredibly useful.
Yeah.
Balance rate, for example, even if they don't have main stats of verse, they're still pretty tanky because every time they press bear, it's like a passive mitigation, pretty much whenever they want.
Yeah, they're already topped, and then they have increased health pool. It's like if we had access to an instant cast Vital Accretion with no cooldown.
And also, but that would be insane.
That would be insane.
Like, I believe every time they have a conduit, every time they drop low, it's called Survival Instincts, wasn't it? It's like they get HP back.
Yeah, they get free
and that's,
dot.
By the way, that's a passive thing. Yeah, they don't have to press anything. They have a bar skin every 60 seconds. They have increased HP as a bear. What is it called? The like a healthstone thing, renew. The talent for fruit. Yeah, renewal. It's insane. So that's why I would say the main struggle comes as a shaman is survivability to some extent. So if you're playing your average keys to mid keys, it doesn't really matter because you will survive any occasion. But the higher the key goes, and especially in progress rating, mythic rating, you're gonna find yourself like in a big struggle. Also, your self-sustain is kind of zero, except from AG, right? AG is a very, very powerful kind of. I like to call it group defensive because I peak 9k HPS sometimes in big packs. Like the first pool of Mist, for example, if it's bursting, for example, Grievous or Prideful, like I insanely top my team, and that's something no class can do.
I mean, we talked about a little this with the whole Night Fae combination with Ancestral Guidance on Pridefuls. You can top your entire team. I myself, as a Night Fae, am doing 1k HPS overall in keys.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's insane. And it's all passive healing. I don't need to cast Heart of the Wild and start casting heals on my friends because I just drop a Healing Stream Totem. I use off the GCD Ancestral Guidance.
Healing Stream Totem, if you have it bound on your bars, remove it, dude. It's waste of time. It's a waste of legit.
It's not a waste of global, dude.
Dude, I see BA casting that. Yeah, I would rather cast Lightning Bolts.
Well, what happens when you're on the move and you have nothing else to cast?
Hearthstone, dude.
Hearthstone. Dude, get me out.
No, but seriously.
Just get me out of this dungeon run.
I mean, okay, well, that's very rare occasion where you're going to have a downtime. Like,
for example, if you're not using Healing Stream Totem on cooldown on Prideful, I think you're trolling. Dude, especially in pugs. Especially in pugs. In a pug scenario, if you're not using Healing Stream Totem, you're trolling.
It heals for like piss. It's like a 800,
It's one global, and it heals for like 28 to 35k total.
Dude, that's fuck off, man. That's not true. I don't believe.
Look at your overall. Actually, never mind. Dude, not your overall. Look at my overall.
I didn't even press it. You haven't checked.
Healing Stream Totem is notably really strong as a passive heal. Okay. Let's talk about. Let's just digress. All right. Let's move back to the actual topic. Yeah. You could press Frost Shock if you have nothing else. True. But what if you actually died by not pressing Healing Stream Totem? It's a healer's drop.
You ank, dude. Fuck it. You ank.
You ank. All right. Getting back to the struggles, why we're not meta. But here's the thing. When you're comparing us to Mage and Boomkin, that's completely fine. I believe that we don't take those spots. 100%. We don't take the Mage spot. We don't take the Boomkin spot in high-end keys. But if you play along with them in the group, it is a extremely solid comp. You've been doing the comp yourself, and I told you it was going to be strong weeks ago before 9.05, and you were like, what do you mean, man? It's not going to be a good thing. But now you're playing Mage, Boomy, Ellie Shaman for a lot of your keys, getting into rank 1 Elemental Shaman world, and you're seeing what I'm talking about. It is an extremely powerful combination. You have trees, you have the utility of Mage, you have the insane burst of both Mage and Elemental Shaman in AoE. And not only that, but your burst damage does not counteract Mage Combust. This has been a thing for the entirety of Shadowlands, right? It was also a thing for BFA. Our burst damage is high, but it's consistent high, right? Whereas mage damage is really, really powerful up front, and then it kind of fades off.
I mean, okay, let me just put it in other words. It's like a wet noodle when they don't have combust. Okay, let's just put it this way.
Yeah, pretty much. If they don't have their cooldowns, they hit like a wet noodle. But we're always on because of Echoes of the Great Sundering. We always have damage. We always have damage, and that's really nice to see. Right.
Yep.
So you have this crazy triple caster comp, and now you throw in a DH tank and a Holy Paladin that's Venthyr. You have literally one of the strongest comps in the game right now.
Absolutely, yes, my dude. I believe this is one of the highest overall damage that you can possibly get out of the comp. I don't think any other comp is good for Elemental Shaman if you pursue obviously competitive keys, but Elemental Shaman could fit pretty much with any combinations because you have 12 seconds kick, which is very, very important in Mythic Plus. And you also benefit not only from Chaos Brand, which is the ability that increases your magical damage by 5% from the DH. You also benefit from Mystic Touch, which is the 5% physical damage increase from your monk. So yeah, you can kind of fit within many combinations. I would say it doesn't really matter what you play in a group. If you ask me what is the best to play with Era Shaman, it's gonna be Mage, Boomer, Shaman, and then a hero can be whatever, either Shaman or a Paladin, and preferably Paladin, and then you get a Vengeance DH tank.
Vengeance DH tank, yeah. I mean, it's such a powerful comp right now. I mean, you're probably gonna see more and more people play it as the patch goes on because we have tons of time before 9.1 comes out. It's not coming out until after the summer.
I believe, if I'm not wrong, I believe it's gonna come around July. Last time I checked, I think around July.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed for that.
Which is gonna be like a 9 months patch.
Yeah.
Well, that is.
So we mentioned that Ellie Shaman is not meta because we don't have a immunity, right? Or we're not a balanced druid tankiness, right? We don't have the utility that balanced druid is so strong for, like trees or innervate for the healer, typhoon, the battle res, right? We don't have those things, but in the context of putting us in the group with those classes, I think is meta. In my opinion, I think that is a meta comp. So even isolating Elemental Shaman on its own is not meta. But adding it into a group where it complements the group composition, I think that's the meta part. Would you agree or disagree? Or are you just reading Twitch chat right now?
I do read Twitch chat, but I agree with you. I think to some extent, if you don't play, again, super top end keys, it's perfectly fine. But I do agree with what you said. Absolutely, yes.
Very good. Very good. All right. Awesome. Do we have any more points that we want to talk about for how Shaman is standing in the current tier or the current?
I don't have anything else to say. I think we pretty much covered everything. Kind of what last thing to say is always play what you enjoy, right?
Yeah.
Don't try to I must play only with Vengeance Tag or only with Holy Paladin. It's not the case. You can play with pretty much anything you want.
Yeah, like right now I'm playing Bear Druid Fury Warrior in my group.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why Shaman is great, because you can fit within every single combination of classes or specializations if you have two classes or the same in a group. So yeah.
Fantastic. So I want to quickly do a little side mention of the current bugs that Elemental Shaman is facing right now that hopefully will get fixed in 9.1. And the biggest one right now is our conduit, Shake the Foundations. That's it, right?
Correct. Yep.
Shake the Foundations.
Shake of the Foundation is not working as intended.
Yeah. It hasn't been since Alpha. Which is ridiculous. Exactly. It has not worked since Alpha.
And we have reported it many, many times, and it's still the same thing. It's not working as intended. and it's kind of pissing me off.
So, like, just to give you guys an understanding of what's not working about it, because the majority of the Elemental Shaman player base will probably just ask, hey, what's the best conduit, and then just roll with that, no questions asked. But Shake the Foundations, casting an Earthquake has a percentage chance to instantly cast Chain Lightning at a random enemy within the Earthquake. Now, currently, it's bugged to where if you have Stormkeeper stacks active and the RNG Shake the Foundation procs from you casting the Earthquake and you have a stack of Chain Lightning, it will cast a Chain Lightning and consume the stack of Stormkeeper, overloading on all of the targets hit and essentially wasting that Stormkeeper cast, especially if you got, at the same time of you casting the Earthquake, an Aftershock proc, right? And then you get all of the extra Maelstrom generation from the Shake the Foundation consuming Stormkeeper.
True.
Not only that, but the free Chain Lightning also gives you full Maelstrom value that it would have given you. So it's completely screwing you over in every sense of using the conduit if it happens in that situation. It's literally, you hate to see it. If it happens, it's terrible.
Yes, absolutely hate it myself.
It makes you feel dirty.
Yeah.
Like I feel physically ill, and I think I want to hurl when I see that happen.
True. And that thing, that's kind of the only thing that is kind of buggy right now, except I've already mentioned in the very beginning, whenever you play Bones with Hammer on the last boss of Necrotic Wake and you're being sent downstairs, if you die downstairs, your soul will not go upstairs and it's gonna forever stay downstairs. Like, you're gonna be forever bugged.
Like your body doesn't go, your body itself.
Yeah. No, I mean,
doesn't go upstairs.
The body goes upstairs for like 10 seconds because they have a spirit with you, right? But as soon as the spirit is gone, you're gonna be downstairs and nobody will put you up again.
Wait, so
it doesn't matter when you're...
Your body goes upstairs and then back downstairs?
Yes, correct.
What the heck?
I can show you clips. Yeah.
So show me a clip off the stream. Yeah.
I mean, I have to find it now, but specifically to look for it. It's gonna take me a while, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying off stream. I want to see that actually in real life.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna send you off stream. I can even try tomorrow to like die on purpose and just show you how it is.
Okay. Well, we got a question in chat. Without this bug, would Shake the Foundation be used?
I still don't believe so. No, I think currently the way our tree works, like Marrow Gemstone is way stronger than the Shake of the Foundation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think Cold Flame is kind of a must conduit to have.
Yeah.
The increased duration for Storm Melee or Fire Elemental. So I don't think so. Even if it's rework, I mean, if it's rework, maybe, but with the current version, absolutely not, my opinion.
Yeah, it's not worth using right now to replace Call of Flame in the single potency tree paths, right? Because we usually will go double endurance just to get the best soulbind traits that are usually on the last row. And our single potency Call of Flame is just so much more powerful over the entirety of the dungeon that Shake the Foundation, even if it did work properly, probably wouldn't make up for.
Yep.
Especially with the Storm Elemental build.
Yeah, absolutely agree. 100%.
So we had another question. This is the section of the video where we're just going to be answering a little bit more questions that chat may have, and then we're going to end off the stream as we've been going for a little while. So if you guys have questions about anything that you want answered, go ahead and type them out in chat. So what if 9.1 added one more potency slot? Would we use it then? If Shake the Foundation was fixed and there was an additional potency slot, it would probably be between the Covenant specific potency conduit and Shake the Foundations.
I'm gonna be using definitely Shake if it's one more potency conduit and it's also fixed. I would use Shake of the Foundation
as a second potency if they added more.
Absolutely, yes. I think the Covenant specific conduits are kind of grim. Like, they're not really good for Mythic Plus. They're okay in some scenarios. I'll give an example of the Necrolord ability, Tumbling Wave. Like, it could be useful if you play Master of the Elements, but other than this, you don't really play it as much. It's not high enough uptime for you to use it.
I would play Tumbling Waves over Shake the Foundations in Theater of Pain or Plaguefall.
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. I agree on that. Yes.
So, what kind of sims do you run for Mythic Plus? Say Fortified Weeks. You don't run sims for Mythic Plus. You give yourself an understanding of what your stats do for your character and what stats interact with which spells, and you kind of gear your character off of that. So we have an understanding that crit is our best AoE stat or our best overall stat for Mythic Plus.
Yep.
Haste is also really, really good for Mythic Plus. Increases our cast speed, which generates additional Maelstrom faster, especially in an AoE situation when we're casting Chain Lightnings faster. Rather than simulating your character for Mythic Plus, because it is impossible to accurately simulate Mythic Plus, especially with all of the different scenarios that can happen with it. Like, things can happen on the fly that's not predictable in a simulation, and different Mythic Plus's dungeons would yield different results as far as your simulations go. So I don't think it's smart to sim for, what is it called? Dungeon Slice?
Okay, so I've kind of made a article on Patreon about it. I've went through even video explanation how I do things, but for people that ask me often, how do I sim? So it depends, first of all, on the kind of player you are. Right? If you're like a beginner player, then simming yourself with Dungeon Slice could provide you with the basic information that could serve. I mean, it could serve you as a benchmark, potentially like a foundation of what you want to look for. Definitely not as accurate as, for example, simming Patchwork and like a couple of targets. What I usually do is I sim Patchwork 3 targets, 5 targets, and 8 targets for about 60 seconds, because I know I do high enough keys. But if you do lower keys, you can do 40 seconds, and then I use no bloodlust and try to use no cooldowns, no potions, just to have an accurate understanding of like how much do I do, what is the stat representation when it comes down to AoE, and then I do a single target for 2 minutes, Patchwork again, and then I see myself like, okay, well, this seems that, and based on this I can kind of reconstruct my build, and particularly try to solve sockets and chants and trinkets to some point. And,
right. Right.
Yep.
Speaking of trinkets, somebody asked, what is the best trinkets for Mythic Plus? Now we could talk about PvP.
That's
trinkets, but also trinkets that you can get outside of PvP. So one blatantly obviously good Mythic Plus trinket is the badge from PvP. It's a 1 minute cooldown. It is a stat steroid increase that lines up with your Stormkeeper, and it's relatively easy to get.
I think, in my opinion, PvP is the best on-use trinket, and if you don't have that, worry not. There are different trinkets that you can use. For example, Soul Igniter is another option where you could replace it. That's from Raiding Sun King's Ovation, and Ruby is also another option from Theodore Payne.
Yeah, Soul Letting Ruby.
Although I would say not the most desirable option. I would go for Batch first and then Soul Igniter. But again, those are topics that I've pretty much covered every single time.
We talk about that stuff like in every guide video.
I know that video, but like every single stream, I kind of, it's kind of the same questions, but generally, I guess new people coming and trying to ask. That's why I have either commands or I make a Patreon pages around that one, so that people can understand why, where we're coming off. And by the way, if you haven't seen, I think both me and Barokoshama have a Patreon where I'm not sure what you do on your Patreon. I believe you do mainly YouTube videos in regards to Shaman.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Early access to projects that I do, of course, and the different tiers offer different rewards, stuff like that. Like my final tier, which is my Bloodlust Boy, you get 30 minutes of free coaching a month, but you got to schedule that with me. And then Petco also does similar stuff to that, right? Through your Patreon tiers.
My Patreon is a bit different than yours. I don't have an early access videos on YouTube because I'm not that active on YouTube due to just generally having not enough experience on YouTube. Pretty much I'm alone. If I have somebody to help me out, it would be amazing, but I don't.
Hire an editor, dude. It's literally the best decision I've made for my YouTube channel.
Right. Anyway, that's not a topic, but generally my Patreon is surrounded about coaching and Mythic Plus tips, how to get better as LA Shaman, investing in yourself, different topics every single day or every 2 days about, for example, how to play AoE as Shaman, how to play 2 targets, 3 targets, single target, AoE rotation, quota management, and that's pretty much covered also not only in videos but also in descriptive text. So
I've taken a dabble in your Patreon. I like what I see there too.
Yeah, I do devote a lot of time and patience and the most important love to what I do. So yeah, I think both of us doing an amazing job. Even with your YouTube, I even told you off stream, like it looks amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Editing is it's amazing and I like it myself. But
we're both subscribed
think
to
we
each
both-
other's YouTube channels.
Absolutely, yes. I mean,
And you guys
I mean,
should subscribe too. If you don't know,
Yeah.
Petco is a YouTuber. He also has his oh sorry, I can't mention that. Never mind. The other thing that he does on a different platform.
True.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys don't know, I'm like Twitch is not really my like real life job. Like I do kind of a, how can I say, part-time firefighter, part-time policeman job. You know what I mean, like late night stuff. Sometimes I'm a plumber, cosplayer, right? I go around Argento and stuff like this. Like, obviously I do devote my time outside of the game.
It's art.
I'm an art.
It's art, dude.
I'm an artist, and I work with both genders, obviously.
This is his passion.
Exactly. That's what I'm born to do. Right.
But some of these questions we already answered in the video. So if you guys are asking questions and we're not answering them, that just means like we answered them in the podcast. So you can always go back. The podcast itself is going to be up on my YouTube channel, which will be obviously there's chats in Twitch that you can go to. The links in my panels down below, and you can also check out Petco's YouTube and his Twitch channel, which will be linked in the video's description down below. But this is pretty much the end of the podcast. This was episode 2 of the OnlyShams podcast. I am Barokoshama here with my good friend Petco. If you guys are interested in more content like this, definitely like the video if you like it. Subscribe for more to both my content and Petco's.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me. And before we end, I just want to say one more thing. When people ask me like which build is better, can you show them this, Nick? 1 second. Can you show this stream?
Yeah.
Show the 12th place and the first place really quick. When people ask me which build is better, that's what I usually answer them.
Actually, this is toxic. I don't really want to do this. This is toxic, man. I was like, yeah, dude, I'll show it on stream. I'll show it on stream, no problem, buddy. I got you. And then I realized what you're linking me, and I'm just like,
holy shit, dude. Okay, I usually banter a lot. Okay, it's a joke, dude. Relax.
I'm relaxed, dude. But here's the thing. If I look at your keys, 90% of the people. No. If I look at your keys, 90% of your keys are done with the same people. The same players.
I built a group.
The same players that you play with, and it's called an organized group. Meanwhile, I'm pugging up to 2600. Give me a team. Yeah. Give me a team that I play with every fucking week, and we'll have a competition.
You know what? I don't join teams, dude. I create the teams, yeah?
You have a consistent team that you played with. You've had that since BFA. That's one of the main reasons. True. Should I ask Rats?
Okay, I haven't played with Rats ever since season 3. I played last season in a different group. Then
Give me a team. Give me a team, see what happens. All right?
You know what? Here's the deal, okay? If I have enough time, if I don't have enough time, I'm gonna jump to NA. No meme. I'll jump to NA and I'll play on EU at the same time. If I have enough time. But the thing is I don't anymore. I'm an adult right now. But yeah.
And you're moving soon.
It was just a banter, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm swapping apartments in like a couple of days, and it's gonna be a lot of work outside of game, and it's gonna be like massive. I mean, I'm pretty sure you moved recently, right?
Yeah.
This
is a brand new.
Look
at this. It's beautiful.
Let me check.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is absolutely. I mean, it probably took you like lots of time to set everything up, and you get the internet and a computer and build this and build that. It's time. I mean, you have a partner, right? You have a girlfriend.
Yeah.
She literally solo carries you ass, dude. Like, I'm 100% she probably made half of the room at least. At least she did everything there.
Actually, I did the majority of the moving because Steph had to stay here for the deliveries. So I broke my back during this move, and I had to take yesterday off because my body caught up with me. So hashtag give Barak a team, and and let's move on. Petco, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so for having me. I wish you a good stream, and I'm gonna be seeing you. I don't know when. Or we usually keep in touch and we jump into each other's streams, say hi and stuff like this.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
All right. Take it easy and see you, chat. Thank you for having us. Hope you're
Perfect.
gonna stick around for the next show, which is gonna be most likely around 9.1.
Yep.
It's gonna be our third episode, and possibly we're gonna include more rating stuff, which is gonna be very interesting for you guys, builds and so on. We're gonna see what is 9.1 gonna offer us. Hopefully, it's gonna be good for Shamans. I really hope so. But again, only time can tell, and I cannot really tell you what's gonna be happening. But stick around. We'll see. Thank you for the
Alright.
support. Much love, guys. Stay together. Shaman is a small community. We must stick together as a team.
Stick
right?
together, keep
Spread
calm, and
love,
maelstrom on. That's what I always say.
Right. All right. Take it easy, boys, girls. Have a
See
good
ya.
one, and peace out from me.
Bye.
Bye, boys.